Hello and welcome back to On Your Beauty. Today's video is going to be a comparison review of the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer and the Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer. I have the shade NC15 from MAC and this is in the shade Light Chantilly, Light 1 or Chantilly. So this is the lightest shade of this and I think this is the lightest of this one. I could be wrong. Anyway. This retails for £17 and you get 9ml. It comes in a wee glass bottle and it has a small pump that it's okay to control. It does require a bit of effort to get the hang of, but I can control it mostly. It's a bit grubby looking, I apologise. And this is a plastic container. It retails for £22 for 2.2 grams or ml. And it has a doe foot applicator. Now, I bought this quite a wee while ago. You would have seen it in the haul ages ago when it was in the run up to my wedding. I was looking for a good concealer to use under my eyes because I thought I was doing my own makeup. This is okay. I bought it specifically, as I said, for under my eyes. I've discovered though it's not particularly suited for me for under my eyes. I've done a wee video where I've shown the application of both and they both look pretty much identical when they're applied. This I would recommend, for me anyway, it was best to use my finger when applying it. Sometimes if I used a brush I tend to move the product around rather than actually placing it on where I needed to and for it to stay there. If I used a brush it would be, you know, I'd pop it on and then use a brush and it would just move off where I'd applied it. When I wear this under my eyes it tends to crease quite a bit, so after a few hours it will have really sunk into the creases and really accentuated those under my eyes. So I do have quite a few wee wrinkles under my eyes. That's fine, that's just the way it is. But I don't want to accentuate them. And I found that this really does it. And because of the little pump, it can be quite difficult to get out the teeny tiniest amount that you need for under your eyes. So even with the smallest amount of this I was able to do under my eyes, and then you will have seen in the video I also used it to conceal a few blemishes that I have under my chin, and you know that was with the smallest amount I could pump out. So that is the only annoyance with this, in that, you know, with the pump anyway, that the more you have a wee bit of control it's always going to be a wee bit too much. The glass bottle, again, that's a wee issue because you can't really pop that in your handbag. You know, there's every chance that that is going to break when it's in there. So it's not suitable for under my eyes, and it's suitable for spots, but again not suitable for popping in your handbag. You have to be incredibly careful as well with the amount of this you apply. If you do decide to apply it to your spots, obviously make sure you have applied your foundation first. I always do it after my foundation because if I apply it before my foundation it seems to cake a wee bit more. So teeny tiny amount on your blemishes, the smallest amount you can. And again, I tend to prefer to use my finger when I apply this to any blemishes. I can't really use a brush because it moves them off, and if I use a sponge, well, I suppose I can use a sponge around the edge of it and that's fine, but if I use a sponge sometimes I almost take the product off again. So finger is the best way with that. Always make sure you use clean hands. Now this, you can see, is actually lighter than the MAC version. This I absolutely love for under my eyes. Really, really love it. I can see what all the fuss is about. This is totally worth the hype. This is fantastic for under my eyes. It brightens, and I only use a teeny tiny amount, and because I have it on the applicator, I can literally just dab a wee bit, and then I go in with my finger. Again, I prefer to use my finger for here, and just dab under my eyes. And I will only ever generally bring it along this area because that's where my issue is. I don't think it's because of the colour, it's not suitable for my spots. However, I would consider possibly when this runs out to get a more of a skin tone colour with this for my blemishes, because it just works wonders, and I'd love to see it on my spots because I don't think this would cake up. This can cake up if I'm not careful, and sometimes when it dries down, the MAC one, when it dries down, you tend to get a wee bit of caking possibly, but I don't know. I'm not entirely sure that this is worth the hype that surrounds it. It's a good concealer, definitely, but it's not for under your eyes, and you have to be so careful in applying it. It's not for beginners, shall we say, because if you overdo it in any way, shape or form, it's really obvious. Whereas this is just fantastic for under your eyes. You, as I said, only need a small amount, and anybody can apply this well from what I could gather, because you only need your finger. It doesn't sink into my creases even throughout the day. I was so amazed when I was checking, you know, in my lunch breaks and stuff between work, and I'd be like, oh, that's still there, and it's not sunk into all the creases. By about 5 o'clock there was a tiny amount of it sinking into the crease, you know, making that sort of line you can get. I just dabbed with my finger, gone again, issue resolved, fine. Whereas this would have been thoroughly in my creases by about, well, at least an hour before my lunchtime, definitely, because I have seen it happen on multiple occasions, that this would just sink desperately into any kind of fine line. This I would recommend if you have got more wrinkles under your eyes and everything else. This is the way forward. The Nars Radiant Concealer, the Radiant Creamy Concealer is definitely worth the hype. Although it's definitely more money for the amount you get, it's just, I can see it lasting for ages, as this one already has been. But I just prefer the Nars one over my MAC one, definitely. The consistency, should we just check that first? If I pump out, there we go. Look how much effort it required just to get that wee dot out. And this one, so the Nars one is definitely a bit thicker, and you know, that bit creamy, obviously, as the name of it suggests, whereas the Pro Longwear Concealer is much more runny. It is very fluid until you warm it up with your fingers, and then it becomes a bit thicker in consistency. So the consistency of the Nars one is already creamy, whereas the Pro Longwear requires a wee bit of effort just to get it creamier. As you can see, even with the smallest little pump, that big area is covered in concealer from MAC. It's just so wasteful. It would be preferable just so you could dab a bit of it from a doe foot applicator and you could use how much you want, but it's good to have these gimmicks. But that is it. So if you have any questions, please let me know down below. I think the overall winner for me will be the Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer. I much prefer it for under my eyes, and which is my main issue, because I generally would always use my foundation as my concealer as well. But now that I have the Pro Longwear Concealer and it matches the foundation I'm using, I will use it up. But yeah, that is it. If you have any questions, as I said, let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching. Please like if you liked, please subscribe if you like, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!